All right, we're going to try this again. Revelation chapter 18. Chapter by chapter study here. You have to apologize for the month in between there. I did record a bunch of them consecutively, but everything from chapter 17 on got lost. I've had to re-record it. And, chapter 17 was long. I don't know if it's been released yet by the time you watch this, but I believe it was over 40 minutes long. So, anyways, we're going to pick right up here. I'm going to try to slow this one back down to a quick 5, 10, 15 minute type of video that will make sense. But I guess with me having not talked on YouTube for a month now, I wanted to kind of sum it all back up and bring all the loose ends back together. So we're going to talk now about this. Now, we do have to remember here, the way I believe is you have this timeline here somewhere in the middle point. Right here, right? Now, I believe this right here is the 42-month, 1,260 day Great Tribulation. This is chapter 17, right here. This right here is the end of everything. This right here is the point that begins it. This 42 months, 1,260 days, 3.5 years, last half of Daniel's 70th week, whatever you want to call it. That's this time period here that encompasses chapter 17. However, I do believe chapter 18 is everything before this point in time. And I believe I will be able to show that to you as we study this out. I would say this one probably is a little bit more difficult to get. It doesn't really probably make sense unless you have my literal interpretation of the Bible. If you take things to be more allegory or symbolism, or if you tend to believe that the end of days is nothing more than, the Muslims or the Catholics or the Pope taking over the world, well, then you'll probably have no issue with chapter 18 being the way it is. But me, I take the Bible to be literal. I believe when it says demonic locusts come climbing out of abyss, and that they're going to be tormenting people for 5 months, and people are going to be begging for death, and they will not even be allowed to die. Excuse me. I believe that to be literal. I don't think not being able to die is, symbolic of. I don't even know what that would be symbolic of. But I literally believe no one will die for 150 days. No matter how massively you're injured, how bad your body is mutilated, you're going to still be alive, and you're going to be experiencing all the pain and torment that goes along with it. So, hopefully, that shows you where I stand. And that's why I believe when you read Revelation 18, you're going to see it cannot occur during that time. This must be occurring in the days, like the days we live in now, where the final 3.5 years has not begun. I don't know when that's going to begin, but whenever it does begin, you will know. Everyone will know, just as it is when the sixth seal is cracked. When it is opened, as was laid out in Revelation chapter 6. Everyone poor, everyone rich, everyone who's a servant, everyone who's a king, everyone who's a slave, everyone who's a slave master, they all know. And it's laid out right there. Zephaniah talks about how that day everyone is spiritually awakened. I believe at that point, if you've heard the gospel at that point, and you have decided you don't want no part of it, I believe at that point in time you have been handed over to whatever you believe, and there is no coming back for you. I believe that point is too late. I actually tend to believe that point may be a little bit earlier, but I'm not certain of that. But at the latest, I think it happens by the sixth seal. So that being said, let's carry on through here. We'll read the first couple of verses here of chapter 18. I'll read the first 8 verses. 18:1. After these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. Now, this is an angel speaking here. This is not God, because it says another angel came. But it is noteworthy that this does compare to things about God, especially Ezekiel chapter 43. We all know where God is illuminated, or his glory of God illuminates things. But also remember, too, that Moses, his face illuminated just from his presence with God. So maybe the mighty angel just came from the presence of God, or maybe the mighty angel is like God. We really don't know for sure. A lot of speculation can be made there, but either way, that's what you can see there. But Say if you want to read more of that, you can read Isaiah chapter 60, Revelation 21, Ezekiel 43, Luke 17, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. You hear about the brightness of the Lord's coming. But anyway, so we'll move on from this. And verse 2, he cried mightily with a loud voice, the same angel, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, has become a dwelling place of demons, and a prison of every foul spirit, and a cage of unclean birds, and every hated bird. For the nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. The merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. We'll stop right here at verse 3, because you just got shared a lot of information. First off, she has fallen is Babylon the Great. Well, that was a direct quote from Revelation 14. We'll get back to that in a minute. She's become a dwelling place for demons. If you are not familiar with 3 chapters, get familiar with them. The dwelling place. We'll write this here. Dwelling place. This is Isaiah chapter 13. This is chapter 20. No, not 24. 24 is a great earthquake. Sorry. 34. Isaiah 34, which is also about the 6th seal. Isaiah 34 will come right out and clearly tell you it is about the 6th seal, because it says it is the time when the stars fall. That's the 6th seal, or the 4th trumpet, depending on how you interpret the stars falling. But either way, you're talking about a time period. I think there's not much time between the two. How it's become a dwelling place of demons for every unclean spirit, for every unclean bird. You'll also find in Isaiah 34, that is where the spirit behind Lilith comes in. You get all these unclean birds which you're not supposed to eat. You get hawks, porcupines, ravens, owls, the screeching owl, the howling owls, all these things, all these unclean birds. This also, in my opinion, and again, this is a deep one, guys. If you notice, you got 2 events here, 17 and 18. I believe what you're describing here is this time right here. Babylon is fallen. This Babylon is falls, becomes a cage for all the unclean birds for the 42 months. This is, in my opinion, the transition from the old way of things. At chapter 18, you got to go back and look at this. God just spelled out for you in Revelation. Chapter 17 here. Look at what you had just finished. You had just finished the 7 bowls of wrath. You just finished the 7 trumpets. You just finished everything about the end of days. Everything about the 1260 days, the 42 months, 3.5 years. All those times which the book of Revelation spells out. So if you think it's confusing, why would it be written backwards? Well, consider this. Consider that Revelation 17 fits in with the chapters you just read. But now that you've read about Revelation 17, now God's going to come back and give you a backstory about how 17 came into power. How things were transitioned over. Because remember, 17 starts when the beast ascends out of the abyss, and the mother of harlots rides that beast out of the abyss, which means they were in the abyss together. So what that means then is that the daughter of harlots had already been in power before this event began. Now you're reading about the fall of daughter of harlots, which set up for all this stuff to begin. So when does Babylon fall? When does it become an unclean spirit? The 6th seal. So that time period between the 6th seal and the 5th trumpet, and by the way, as you haven't ever seen before, the possibility of the stars falling may be the 4th trumpet. It could be the 6th seal or the 4th trumpet. I, for one, do not believe there's much time between the two, but that can go either way. Most people tend to believe it's the 6th seal, but I want to throw it out there, it's possibly also the 4th trumpet. But again, that's not a very big time frame difference, so it really wouldn't make that big a difference either way. Again, to notice that there are 2 separate events, you might want to pay attention to the birds. In Luke 17 and Matthew 24, God says wherever the eagle is, wherever the corpse is, there the eagle will be gathered. Another place it says wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered. Well, in shadows and silhouettes, eagles are usually angels, typically unclean ones. But notice the body and the corpse. One is dead and one is dying. It's an interesting riddle that remains consistent. No more than Edom gets drenched in blood twice. There's 2 times of it. And you're reading about one of them right here. The same time frame, Isaiah 34, Isaiah 13. This is at the tribulation trigger. So the end of all things falls there. Also, going back to Revelation chapter 14, you got to remember Revelation 14, there were 3 angels. Let me flip back over to it and read them real quickly. Angels came with 3 messages. The first message had an everlasting gospel to preach to all the people, every tribe, nation, and tongue. He said, fear God and give glory to God. That was the first message. We're writing it down here. That's the gospel message. Came in right here at number 1. The second message became Babylon is fallen, is fallen. That's the second message. And they're in consecutive order. Number 1, which was the gospel being preached to the world. You can make that connection being anything from the death of Christ on to through the time we live in now. The second one, of course, Babylon the Great is fallen. But what would the third angel say right here? The third angel followed, verse 9, said, if anyone worships the beast of the image or receives his mark, he shall also drink. So it's a warning about taking the mark. Well, Babylon is fallen happened before the mark was ever taken. Now compare this to Revelation 17. How can Revelation 18, that harlot, be the same harlot as Revelation 17? When this beast comes out of the abyss, he gives his mark to everybody to take. Well, right here, after Babylon has already fallen, and think about this. Some people believe Babylon falling. In chapter 17, Babylon falls at the end of the 42 months. How is it then at the end of the 42 months, after you would have already taken the mark, would God then send an angel out at the end of the 42 months to say, hey, by the way, don't take the mark? You know, kind of 3.5 years after the point by now. That doesn't make sense. God wouldn't do that. What's really happening here is this right here. The third angel from chapter 14. This, by the way, is chapter 14. This is Revelation chapter 14 where this was spelled out. These 3 angels. This first angel right here is the Revelation 17 angel / Revelation 13. The message, The message from this angel is about Revelation 17 and Revelation 13. Timing of the period where you got to deal with the mother of harlot and taking the mark. This one here is referring to chapter 6 through 8. The fall of Babylon. This is the earthly Babylon, the city Babylon. This right here is the spirit, the angelical force that ruled behind all of it. Remember, with the beast from the abyss, the 10 horns, the 10 kings were already in power before the beast ascended out of the abyss. Same thing with the mother harlot. Her daughter was already in power before she ascended out. The same thing with the Lamb, guys. In the book of Revelation chapter 5, when we see the Lamb who was to be slain, he had 7 horns. What were his 7 horns? They were his 7 churches. They have been in power since he gave them, God put them in power at the day of Pentecost in, what was it, AD 30 through 33. Everybody has a different opinion what year that was. But the day Christ ascended in Acts chapter 2, that's when the 7 horns came into power. That's when they were doing this right here. They were preaching the message. Of course, they were people, not angels, but you get the point there. So the messages are being preached. Well, that was Christ's horn. Christ was in heaven, yet his horns were still in power on earth. So keep that in mind there. Hopefully this makes sense from Revelation chapter 14. And that paints the picture for you that Revelation chapter 18 actually occurs before this line in the sand. Same line in the sand I've always had, guys. What's the line in the sand? This is the 6th seal. 6th seal through the 5th trumpet. Now, I vary a little bit side to side. That line's kind of broad, I know, because I'm not sure exactly where in the middle this line is. At some point between the 6th seal and the 5th trumpet, there's a line drawn in the sand. Things are mechanically going to change for how salvation works, how the earth works. From the very orbit of the earth down to the tilt of the earth, the size of the earth. God, if you've ever read Psalms, you'll actually find out the earth is actually going to expand. Believe it or not, that's going to happen. Earth's going to expand. The book of Psalms says it. And I believe the Bible will be literal. So that's why I believe it to happen. So all these things are going to occur. This is the line in the sand between the 6th seal and the 5th trumpet. I don't know exactly where. Probably through many more years of study I'll figure it out. But either way, that's the line in the sand. Now let's pay attention now to the rest of this book here of chapter 18. I believe now I've fought my case for how the people... I won't be able to read the whole book because this video is getting too long already. Let's just look at what's going to happen here. Another angel. Okay, I got to read this part. Verse 4. Another angel, another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, lest you receive of her plagues. Again, if the why would you be coming out of her if you've already taken the mark? That's not going to happen. This come out of her is before this line in the sand. Come out of her. So we're going to write this here. At some time prior to this event beginning, you want to come out of her. And I apologize for my writing, guys. I know it's terrible. I don't know how to use PowerPoint. And if you want to understand more about coming out of her, you want to understand her as being alluded to the loose woman. That's the illusion you're getting there, guys. She's alluded to a harlot. Go read the book of Proverbs. Read chapters 5 through, I think 7, maybe chapters 5 and 6. I think it's 5 through 7. Go read Proverbs 5 through 7. You'll learn all about the harlots and coming out of the harlot. God wants his people to come out of this harlot. And this harlot is not a woman. This harlot is the Babylon. Is that great city. Go read Zephaniah chapter 2 and chapter 3. It clearly spells out for you the harlot, the great city, is Babylon. It is the mountain. And go read Zechariah chapter... I don't remember what chapter it is now, so I can't tell you what it is. I think it's 3. That don't sound right. It can't be chapter 3. Maybe it is chapter 3. Anyways, the great mountain. Whatever it is, I don't remember what chapter it is now. So anyways, we'll move on now. That's enough cross-references for now. Her sins have reached up to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquity. Render to her just as she has rendered to you. Repay her double according to her works. For in which she has mixed her cup, mixed double for her. In the measure she has glorified herself and lived in luxury, the same measure I will torment in sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen, and I am no widow. Therefore I will not see sorrow. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her. Go read Ezekiel chapter 23, verses right about after verse 30. You'll get to read all about that, about this time to come, where these things are going to be fulfilled. And again, guys, I like cross-referencing, but I don't get to read everything. But read these, and what you're going to find here is God had compared his two nations to women. He called them Oholah and Oholibah. They were the nations of Israel and Judah. And they played the harlot with the world. They were not spiritually faithful. And therefore God comes out against them and he says all these judgments. Well, right here he's giving you the exact same description as Ezekiel 23. So go read Ezekiel 23. And look how it says, I sit as a queen and I am no widow. How is Israel a widow? Israel's God died on a cross. That's how Israel became a widow. She is mocking God's people. Because God's people were widowed. Why were God's people widowed? Well, guys, they committed adultery. God divorced them. You can read about that in Jeremiah 1 or 4. I forget what chapter it is now. God had divorced Israel. God hates divorce. He didn't take it out lightly. But God divorced Israel. They were so unfaithful to him that he had to divorce them. They played with every false god in the world they could possibly imagine. I mean, imagine a wife who just... I got a cat up here trying to get in the video. There we go. Imagine, somebody who has a wife who just is... who's just tries to sleep with everybody in the world. I mean, probably your own family members aren't safe with them. I mean, that was what Israel was to God. It was an adulterous wife, an extremely adulterous wife. And God had divorced her, and God died, and she became widowed. And, that's what she's quoted to there. Also, you can go to Isaiah chapter 47, you get more info on that. But I got to wrap this one up, guys, so I'm not going to read the rest of the chapter. I'm going to give you sums of this. You're going to get people in groups who are going to lament for when Babylon is fallen. They're going to be kings of the earth who stand at a distance. You're going to have the merchants of the earth who stand at a distance. And you're going to have the shipmasters who travel on ships and sailors. They're all going to cry out when they see the great city burning. And they're going to be, what was like this city? What was like this world that we had? All of these guys, read all of these verses. They're all talking about the wealth they had. Again, to prove my point that this time is not during chapter 17. You really think that when angels and demons are ruling this world, that they're going to allow you to have wealth? There's going to be no wealth. There's going to be no prosperity. There's going to be no food. Guys, if you haven't read the book of Revelation, you're only going to survive because there's no death. I mean, oh my God, it says in the book that if God hadn't shortened the time, no flesh would have survived. But for the sake of the elect, He's shortening the time. The time period in the past was always 40 years. That was what God always used for His time reference. But in this chapter, in this time, He's going to shorten it to 3.5 because nobody would survive beyond that 3.5 years. But it's going to be a famine, guys. It's going to be a time worse than what Noah experienced, which was the worst time to history. At this point in time in history, that's the worst, guys. It's worse than anything that ever happened to Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It is worse than anything right now that's going on in the Middle East. Syria with Iraq, all the stuff going on over there right now. It is worse than any of that. And there's no way during this time people are trading and selling oil and frankincense and flour and wheat, and all these people are trading, these merchants are trading, people are getting rich and they're living in luxury. Guys, this is not going to be happening. In the past it's always happened. Look at the Great Depression. There always were people who were wealthy during the Great Depression. Not everybody was broke. There were people who got rich during the Great Depression. There were people who got rich when the economy collapsed in 9/11 because they played the odds and they got rich off of it. It happens, but this is not going to happen at the end of days, guys. It's all going to change. So hopefully if you see this, you're going to see that it's not going to be that way. And then closing out the chapter, the great millstone is thrown into the sea, and it says, "Thus shall Babylon be thrown into the sea." That's compared to a lot in the Old Testament. Jeremiah chapter 51. He talks about it a little bit in Jeremiah 25, Jeremiah 7. These are all places where that is alluded to. A little bit in Isaiah chapter 23. But hopefully, 21, by how her lamp is removed from her. Remember what lamps represented. These were all these things, that were alluded to there. I don't have time to read them all. I'm out of time. I need to go ahead and cut this video off. I've been 20 minutes already, but read the rest of this chapter and read what happens here. You got 3 segments. I'll read them to you again. The first 8 verses is the first segment of chapter 18. Verses 9 through 20 gives you the 3 groups of people. The first group is verses 9 and 10. The second group is verses 11 through 17. The third group is verses 18 through 20. That's the 3 groups of people who are going to lament for the fall of Babylon. And then verses 21 through 24 describe the fall of Babylon. And about the merchants and all the people and the sorcery. By the way, sorcery is pharmakia, witchcraft. It is the word that we get pharmacy from. It is the use of mind-altering drugs is a part of it. There's more to it than just that. But mind-altering drugs is part of sorcery. That's what sorcery is rooted from. So, all these things are mentioned there, guys. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints. So, here's Babylon, the fallen. The daughter of the mother harlots. This is the comparable to the spirit of Athaliah. This is going to be the one who is going to go for the slaughter of the innocents. Guys, if you're not familiar with the slaughter of the innocents, it's going to happen again. If you have read Exodus chapter 2, or what's chapter 1? I think it's chapter 2. Maybe chapter 1. Read Exodus 1 and 2. I don't forget which one it is now. If you have not read Luke chapter 2, or the Matthew 2. Why is it with me today in chapter numbers? I can't remember. If you haven't read the birth of Christ, you haven't read the birth of Moses, then you don't know what Revelation 12 is describing. There will be another attempt at a slaughter of the innocents. That's what this riddle is, Revelation 12. That's the male child the woman's going to give birth to. That's the riddle to that group, guys. There will be a third slaughter of the innocents. And guess who's going to be the one who's going right here? Chapter 18. This is the woman, the feminine counterpart that is going to be after that male child. Just as Athaliah was the daughter of Jezebel, she became the queen and she ruled and she slaughtered all the male children except for Josiah or Joash, whichever one it was she missed. She missed all but one of the male children. You got to know that symbolism and that picture, because this one right here is the same deal. This is Athaliah. I hope I spell her name right, because I always forget how to spell it. And this one is Jezebel. Remember, Jezebel came first in the order of the flesh. And Jezebel, in chapter 17, this spirit actually was the root of all the spirits. But this spirit of Jezebel was born all the way back before the days of Noah. This spirit is her daughter, so you got a picture. She was here all the way back here. In her absence and her being carried down into the abyss, the Athaliah spirit rules until this time period here. All this time is the Athaliah spirit. The daughter harlot, spirit. This is the one who consumes the firstborn children. This is the one who is behind it in the days of the Exodus and the birth of Moses. This is the spirit behind it at the birth of Christ. This will be the spirit behind those children in Revelation 12 that they're going to go for. They're going to wait to devour. This is the spirit behind them. But she's going to fall to the sixth seal. She's going to be destroyed. At the sixth seal, at the same time period, it may not be the same day, it may be a couple months, maybe as much as 40 days away, maybe 21 days, I don't know. At the same time period that this ends right here, this intersection between her death, the stars are going to fall, and the earth is going to open in an earthquake. And all these beasts are going to come out of this abyss. And with that beast comes out Jezebel, the one who's been locked up in chains from all the way back here in the days of Noah. Hopefully that makes sense, and I can show you in a picture how the daughter, from our perception, we're in the time of the daughter. What you don't realize is that the mother was around, say, from the Garden of Eden until Noah's flood. The mother was in power. She went down into the abyss with the beast and the fallen angels from that day. And then when things closed up, at some point her daughter came into being. And her daughter will die, and then she will come back. That's how this goes, guys. I hope that makes sense. And again, remember, all of this really is pointing you to Babylon. The flesh Babylon is in power now, and it's going to fall. This is the financial system of the world we live in today, guys. This is the dollar system. The Illuminati, the New World Order, all whatever kind of things you believe in. It don't matter which one it is you believe. Whatever it is you believe in, caliphate governments, whatever. This is the Babylon of today. This is all going to come crashing down at the sixth seal, or the fourth trumpet, or the fifth, and at the time of the fifth trumpet. Remember, sixth seal to fifth trumpet. During that time frame, however long this is, all of this comes crashing down. There is no more Babylon system. There's no more money. There's no more TV. There's no more cell phones. There's no more iPads. There's no more GPS. There's no more air conditioning. There's no more running water. There's no more electricity. All of that stuff is coming crashing down. There will be no stone left upon another. Out of that Babylon, what it is falling, a new Babylon will rise. Just as symbolic with Ahaz and Jezebel. This Babylon will rule the world. It is a world power Babylon. It will be run by angelic authority directly. No more interacting through earthly kings. No more using the horns to manipulate kings and have them bow down to you and worship you. Guys, you're not going to bow a knee to Baal. You're going to look at Baal dead in the eye. You're going to look at him right into his eyes. That's what you're going to see. You're not going to see the men worshiping him and offering up incense to him. Nope, you're going to see him in the flesh. He's going to be standing right in front of you. That's how bad it's going to be. So hopefully that makes sense. That's it for me. I've talked for almost 30 minutes. Way to go. 1870 Bible Study. You find me on Facebook and find me on YouTube. None of it costs you a dime, guys. It's all free. Hope you enjoy it.